So I have the old collector flange cut off, cleaned up, ready to weld, and I've got a nice good joint here to my new exhaust pipe. So first thing we're actually going to do is take this collector flange and bolt it back to the exhaust manifold. So the collector flange is back, bolted in place under the truck, and now we're going to work on the down pipe. But I don't know how much of this curve over here I'm going to need to cut, or where I'm going to need to cut it, because the pipe does come down at an angle. So it's going to be, you know, let's say for example a 45-degree angle that would be parallel with the road, with the ground. So I don't have enough room. What I need to do is get the length of this down piece before the bend where I need to cut. So I don't have enough room, so I'm going to cut off the leg of this U-bend. I want to try and preserve as much of this mandrel bend as possible, because I'm probably going to need these pieces further on down the exhaust system, going over the axle and things like that. So like I said, I'm going to cut this leg off, and a good way to get a nice straight cut on a round surface is to take a piece of paper and wrap it around the tube, and when the edges of the paper line up, you'll know that you have about as straight of a line as you can get. So then you just trace that line with a marker all the way around, cut it off with the cutting disc, and move on. Okay, I wanted to take a time out here to bring the camera under here and show you. It's really difficult up here at the front of the engine, or at least underneath the exhaust, to get the camera and the lights and me and pieces of tubing and everything. So anyway, what I've got here, this is the first piece coming off the collector flange. It's just a very shallow bend, and it's going to get welded onto the flange, and it's going to get directed laterally out towards the side of the vehicle, and then rearward towards the back of the truck. Now, really, one of the reasons for that is I've got a clearance issue right here against my oil pan. If I try and put a straight piece in there, it bumps up against the side right in this area. So I could just dent the pipe and allow for that clearance, and that's what the factory did. You can see in the previous video there is a small dent in the pipe, but I'm going to knock out two birds with one stone, and I'll show you here in a minute the other bird. But I'm going to use this piece off the collector. Like I said, going to go laterally to the side of the vehicle and then rearward, and then I'll have another piece coming down, and I'll get the rest of the pieces set up and show you that. So I've got my straight pipe mounted up under the truck, and it's just sitting there on these stands. Now I'm not sure, these are not jack stands. I picked them up at a garage sale. I believe they are leveling stands for an RV or a mobile home, something like that. They're certainly not strong enough to support the weight of a vehicle, but for holding up a 4-foot piece of exhaust pipe, they're perfect, and they're adjustable. They're threaded. The shaft is threaded, and you just spin that little long, basically nut, and you can adjust the height. So anyway, I've got it roughly in place. The vertical, it's set vertically, and it's set side to side, but the fore and aft might need to be adjusted. But you can't see in this shot the header collector, but basically I need to make a piece that comes down from the header collector and joins in with this piece of exhaust tubing. So right here you can see that straight piece of tubing, and up there of course you can see the collector, and I've already gone ahead and I tack welded that little shorty piece I showed you earlier to the collector flange itself. Now I didn't put any witness marks or anything on here, alignment marks, mainly because I have 360 degrees of motion, of rotation with this collector flange. So I just tack welded it in place. So I'm just going to go ahead and bolt this in place loosely so that I do have the ability to rotate this, and then we're going to have a piece that goes from here down here to this straight piece of exhaust tubing. I bolted the collector back into place, and like I said, I've got complete rotation of this collector here, so I can adjust this as I need it. So here is my connector piece. It's just a little, it's the long leg. I didn't cut any of the length off the leg here, and then we've got the bend, and I cut a little section of the bend out. This will need to be dressed a little bit more, but for right now it's pretty close to what I need it to be. So what I'm going to check for is, do I need to cut any off of this leg? Is my length good? And is my cut here good to join up with this straight piece? So kind of put this in place and find what I need to do to modify this.